Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Rich. I'm the Senior Trust Advisor with Aged Trust. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great program that's going to talk and explore the Participant-Directed Services Program that's under the Home and Community-Based Services Waiver Program for Medicaid. I know a lot of us have been talking about it recently, or over the last several months. And so we have some experts today that are actually going to explain the program to us, and you will be able to ask questions at the end. Please do hold your questions or put them into chat, and we'll be sure to allow some time for those. We are providing continuing ed credits as usual for this program, and you will receive an email from Kate at trustaged.org within the week with your certificate of attendance. And of course, for the guardians, we help with your submitting that to CE Broker for you. Here at Aged Trust, we manage special needs trust, pooled trust to help seniors and persons with disabilities qualify for Medicaid. So all of our clients are on some kind of Medicaid program. So today's topic is very pertinent to what we do here, and I'm sure to many of you on the call. So thank you for joining us again. I will introduce our two speakers. Dianna, also known as Di Valenzuela. She is a community liaison for PPL, and Dianna does a lot in the community to educate and advocate for long-term care participants and their families. She has a wide range of roles in both nonprofit and the private sectors. Dianna has a bachelor's degree in human services from St. Thomas University, and she volunteers for the Make-A-Wish Foundation as a wish granter for Spanish-speaking children, which is just wonderful. And she has Cecile Comrie with her also from PPL. And Cecile has a master's in social work and with a specialization in administration, policy, and planning. So we have some experts with us today, and they can tell you a little bit more about what they do. And I will turn it over now to Dianna. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon, for that kind introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen just to ensure that this is working accordingly. So just give me a heads up if you see the screen. Thank you. So as you mentioned, my name is Dianna Valenzuela. Many people call me Dee, and we're very happy and grateful for the opportunity you have given us to share information about the participant-directed option. My role is to educate, find opportunities to create awareness, and inform the community about this best secret benefit that many people do not know about, and that can greatly benefit long-term care participants and their families. As you mentioned, I brought my colleague and mentor, Cecile. She is the subject matter expert on this benefit. She started when the program was launched back over a decade ago. So I brought you the best that I can bring you today. And we know that everybody's busy, and we appreciate the time that you're taking to be with us today. And we will do our best to answer all the questions that you have. So with that being said, just as a reminder, we will provide you with a copy of this presentation along with supportive materials. And, we'll make sure that you get all the information you need. So today, our agenda, we will start the webinar by formally introducing PPL, which stands for Public Partnerships. I was hoping to share a short video, but we're having some issues with the audio, but I will share the link so you can later check it out. A very short video that pretty much highlights what the self-directed benefit or directed option is all about. I will provide a high-level overview on on recent changes with the Medicaid waiver, map that has been recently changed into new regions, and just high level, just go over what the waiver entails as far as screening, application, eligibility, and enrollment. And then Cecile will take a deep dive on what the benefits are, how to get started, how to get referred to the program, and the roles and responsibilities connected to the program. And then finally, we'll conclude by sharing the resources and support PPL has for you to provide you the guidance and you need to inform others about this. And as Sharon mentioned, we'll address all your questions at the conclusion of the presentation. So when we talk about PPL, I always like to just share a personal story of mine, just so you can get some insight of what has been my experience with PPL. I started PPL a little bit over a year ago, and honestly, it wasn't the best timing. I actually started my first week when I had to place my mom in hospice. I had been taking care of my mom for a little bit over 3 years, and she was a long-term care participant. However, I had really very little knowledge of PDO. And even though I was not lucky to take advantage of the PDO at that time, it was very important to me to ensure that my mom's long-term care needs were met on her terms, following her schedule, and just making her care as ideal for her. So it was very hard, as a very, very difficult challenge for me to find the right people to ensure that she was comfortable with them and accommodating to her schedule, the time that she needed to be bathed or care or fed, etc. So if I would have known about PDO, it would have made my life a lot easier. But I was very happy when I was given the opportunity to work for PPL. Not because I work for them, but I can genuinely tell you it's a company that truly believes in their mission, and it empowers people to really live a better life in their homes for as long as they can. And the people that work for PPL truly believe in the mission that we carry. So I hope that I can show you through the presentation what our company really believes in and on the very work that we do in making difference in people's lives, not only in Florida, but also in the 20 different states that we have contracts with. So as I mentioned earlier, PPL's mission is to transform lives by expanding access to participant direction and whole person care. We specialize in providing financial management services for participant-directed programs. This is pretty much all we do. We do not have another line of business strictly to financial management services for participant-directed programs. We are truly passionate and what we continue to work for 25 years to help and support families. We currently operate in 21 states and serve 50 different programs. And we just wanted to share just a little bit more about our workforce diversity. We very much represent the families and consumers we serve. It is important to note that at least 20% of PPL employees have identified as a disabled participant, and other 45% of our employees have an immediate family member with a disability that is aging, and many of us have served as caregivers or as a support for a home program, which I think is important to note. When we talk about self-directed care, it's also important to note that depending where you live in the United States, there are a number of terms that we use to refer to it. So the most commonly terms utilized are self-direction, consumer direction, self-determination. However, here in Florida, we commonly use the term PDO or participant-directed option. And I was hoping to show you the video that pretty much gives you the quick highlight of video, but I'll send you the link to that. Please just take a minute to watch it. It's a really, really short and sweet video that highlights what this option pretty much entails. So, just high level, who are eligible to receive long-term care services, and the individuals must meet both financial and medical criteria. This waiver is specific to individuals who are 65 years age and older or 18 years of older with a physical disability. They must require a nursing home level of care determined by the Comprehensive Assessment and Review Long-Term Care Services, also known as CARES program, and must be eligible, Medicaid eligible. I wanted to just include the most updated income and assets criteria thresholds just for your reference. I just got them from the ACA website for your information. And for those of you new to long-term care, enrolling in individuals in long-term care is a multi-agency effort. These are the 3 key agencies that pretty much manage the whole long-term care application process, from completing the screening, managing the wait list, determining medical and financial eligibility, and ultimately enrolling participant in long-term care plans. For those who have navigated long-term care application, we know it is kind of like a cumbersome program. It does take a number of steps. So the first step that you need to do, or anyone needs to do to inquire about long-term care, they have to contact their local area agency on aging, also known as Aging and Disability Resource Center, or ADRCs. ADRCs provide elders and persons with disabilities and their families easier access to programs and long-term care services. And for those of you who are very familiarized, for over a decade, the statewide Medicaid managed care program was delivered through an 11-region structure. And since that time, Florida's provider networks, healthcare delivery model, and referral patterns have changed significantly. For that reason, effective early this year, this number of regions transition into 9 lettered regions, as shown in the map on the slide. We do want to note that this change does not reduce the number of contracts the agencies are required to award, and to ensure Medicaid enrollees have options when selecting a long-term care health plan. And the managed care organizations, also known as MCOs, provide long-term care support and services to participants through the network of providers. Just high level, this is just what the screening, the application process entails. It takes 3 key steps. The first one would be the screening, which is conducted over the phone. Based on that screening, the individual will receive a score and priority rank that will decide waitlist placement. Step 2 is if placed on the waitlist, the Department of Elder Affairs will notify when enrollment is available. And then a medical staff will, from the Comprehensive Assessment and Review for Long-Term Care Services, which is the CARES team, will assess needs and determine medical eligibility. And then at that point, the Department of Children and Families will determine financial eligibility. When participants meet both medical and financial eligibility, that's when magic happens and they are accepted in long-term care. And at that point is when they are receive instructions on how to select a long-term care plan, and then a case manager will be assigned. The case manager will assist participants to develop a plan of care based on the services and supports needed. And here's where Cecile with all the details about the amazing benefits that PDO offers. So Cecile, the floor is yours. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Dee. So for those of you who may have missed it at the beginning, because I see people are still coming in, I think I've been along for the ride with PDO since day one, 2023, 2013, sorry, when we first came into the space. Dee, you can go to the next slide as I'm talking. So I'll talk through. You're talking on mute. Okay, there you go. So while she figures that out. So in 2013, we stepped into the space as a company, contracted with three of the managed care organizations that were in the space at the time. We've since had some shifts in our contracts, but we currently manage one that we've been on together since 2013 and another that joined in 2018. And as you all may know, SMMC 3.0 launched February 1st of this year. So there's a couple of things that have changed. So, and I call this program the program of alphabet soup. So hopefully any acronym that I throw out there, you will definitely hear what it is before I do it. So we talk about PDO, participant directed option. That's the first acronym. And that's where individuals that qualify for long-term care services do get that opportunity for where they're empowered with choice of who gets to serve them, the who, what, where, when, how services are going to be provided. So I always use as mentioned, I am a social worker background, certificate in gerontology, aging services programs is where I've always been since the beginning of my career many, many, many moons ago. So I am very much aware of where we have come from, where we are today, the fact that we have gone from these traditional service delivery models where back when I was with Broward County Elderly and Veteran Services, as case managers, they would go in, they would make their assessment, they'd come back, they would go through their list of agencies, try to find one that best matched having someone available for what the individual was requesting. Then we came, then we went to, in 2013, when we went to this Medicaid managed care model of care, where now the individual gets to do the choices. They have, not only can they choose which plan they are in, they also get to choose, and this is a part of all the MCO contracts, just so you know, they have to, if the person is living in the community, you can advance to the next one, and they qualify for one of the 5 PDO services, adult companion, attendant nursing care, homemaker, intermittent and or skilled nursing, and personal care, then they would be offered to see whether or not they're interested in the program. So because being in the program comes with a lot of responsibilities, and we'll cover that in a little bit. But there are some tools that the Agency for Healthcare Administration has developed from the beginning to kind of help guide. There is a PDO manual that's on their website. There are guidelines on the website. And then there is this awesome pre-screening tool that case managers are encouraged to use when they're introducing the program to an individual. Because again, this program comes with lots of responsibility. So in the program, so in the managed care organization, that person is referred to as the member. But when they choose to PDO, they choose to be in the PDO program, they then are referred to as participants. So sometimes I interchange the two, but so you know, when I say participant, it's that MCO member that has decided to participate in the PDO program. So in order to qualify, the very first thing, after they've gone through all the hoops of getting into Medicaid long-term care, and the case manager is introducing the services of all the things they can provide them, this is one of the things. As long as they are living in the community, it can be their home, it can be a family member home, but they're not in a assisted living environment, and they qualify to have one of the 5 PDO services as part of their plan of care, then they can elect to say they want to be in the program. So what does that mean? Next slide, please. So when they decide that they want to be in the program, that participant then becomes an employer. So the program is set up where, and we call them employer of record. They have to sign up for an employer identification number, just like any other business. But PPL, as the FMS, we handle all of the employer-related activities. So once the case manager introduces the program to that individual, and we want to make sure that they understand what self-direction really means, what those roles are, what are their responsibility under this program, the participant, who then becomes the employer, is now responsible for hiring. They've got to recruit their worker. We call the workers in this program direct service workers, or DSWs. They have to, present them with some type of job description, what they're looking for. They have to manage, timesheets, making sure that they're approving the time entries for workers so that their employees, because the direct service worker becomes their employee, not a contracted independent contractor. In this program, the workers will get a W-2 at the end of the year. So they're workers, they have to qualify under certain benefits. But one of the things with this program that I really like is that a lot of times, especially someone that's older, someone that's disabled, they may not feel that they can take on those employer responsibilities. And so if they want to participate in the program, but they're a little bit on the fence as far as taking on the responsibility, they can elect to have what we call a designated representative. So this person is not a POA. It can be a family member, a friend, just somebody that's going to help them with their employer responsibilities. So with the representative, they can sign off on some of the paperwork during enrollment, not all of them. Any paperwork that's related to, I call them the tax forms. So the SS4, which makes them an employer, gets them that EIN 2678. And I'm just throwing numbers out there. You don't have to remember any of this, which is what then they indicate the FMS that's going to be taking responsibility for making sure that their employer-related taxes are paid. As I mentioned, in this program, the direct service workers are employees. So as the employer, the FMS is going to then make sure that quarterly tax filings to the Department of Revenue in the state of Florida for workers' compensation is also done, because these workers can qualify for unemployment depending on the circumstances behind why they're no longer receiving a paycheck. And I always use they've been employed long-term for a while, and the person has an adverse event and ends up in a nursing home. That worker can then, in filing unemployment, to be able to bridge the gap until they then find additional work. All that aside, the representative is going to help them with the enrollment paperwork. They're going to help them making sure with the scheduling, with timesheets, with all the requirements. So as they're recruiting that worker has to be 18 years of age or older. That worker has to pass a level 2 criminal background check. And because this program the representative is also now taking on a level of responsibility. That representative also has to do a level 2 criminal background check. Next slide. Okay, so the direct service worker, as I said, they have to also enroll in the program. So there's an enrollment packet for the participant. There's an enrollment packet for the worker. The worker has to, again, do that level 2 criminal background check paid for by the program. So it's not an out-of-pocket cost. The employer, the participant, that member of the MCO can have recommendations for what they would like the worker to be trained in. Again, they are looking at people in their community, family member, friends. It's not a formal relationship, but they may have some requirements that they would like for the worker to have. When I train the case managers from the MCO, I always talk about CPR and first aid is something that, while recommended, should not be a requirement unless we figure out how to make sure that it's paid for, because it can be a blocker in getting the person started with services. That worker is also, still responsible for time entries. On here it says timesheets, but I always go time entries because 2010, I don't even remember which year it was. The Cures Act moved everybody into electronic visit verification. So we want to know, who's providing the service, where the service is being provided, what service, those type of things. And so there are now time capture applications to ensure that this information is compliant with the federal laws. So we've moved away from paper timesheet, which we were doing 2013, 2018. We still had paper timesheet. I think around 2019 is when we went to EBV. These workers have a level of responsibility. They're also responsible for making sure that the care that they're being paid for, they're providing. And I always joke and say, to someone, because when we first started, I was even doing enrollment. So, and I would joke in the enrollment, you can hire your daughter-in-law to provide you with your personal care and homemaking, but if she's not doing it, you can feel free to fire her because you are the employer. Nobody has to give you permission to do that. If you fire her, you're firing her from her role as direct service worker, not from the role of your daughter-in-law. So, we try to make that very clear during the process so that individuals understand that the responsibility of these workers do fall on them. And we also, I just looked down and saw bond. Yes, people are always concerned with the insurance and the liabilities piece of this. But again, because it's family members and friends and they're going into someone's home, typically I say that, and knock wood, we've never had this. If there are any incidents, it would be looking at, again, these workers do qualify. They are employees. So not only do they qualify for unemployment, we do have them covered under workers' compensation, just so you know. Next slide. All right, so as the FMS, you will hear us in the field being referred to as the FMS, the FEA, interchangeably. Every managed care organization in Florida has to offer PDO. And if they are offering PDO services, they have to have an FMS provider. So as I indicated, we are the provider for two of the managed care organizations, Florida Community Care and Simply Healthcare. These are the two that we are currently contracted with. We've had previous contracts with Aetna, with Humana, so we are familiar and the market is familiar with us. And what do? We take on the responsibility of, once the case manager introduces the program to their member, they're going to refer them over to the FMS. And at that point, that member then starts being referred to as the participant. So we will do the enrollment. We will walk them through all the paperwork, as I've indicated. There's some tax forms, some other things, some agreements, consent forms that are produced by the agency. There are certain things that they have to sign off on. In our program, there are two methods. There is a paper method and there's an electronic method. Both ways, everything is pre-populated and we're literally walking them through collecting signatures. We have enrollment specialists on staff, and their job is to take that referral and get the person from that piece of paper saying they want to participate in the program all the way to the worker receiving their first paycheck. That's the role of our enrollment specialist in the program. As I said, we do all of the tax filings, all of the things that are related to that. We do all of the criminal background checks. When we talk about this program and we talk about workers, and again, my mind, traditional, there's a certain level of comfort with using a traditional agency. If the worker calls out sick, then there is somebody else that agency may have someone else that they can send in their place. So when we talk about the program to participants, we talk about having a backup plan. And the backup plan, it can be another worker, it can be the agency, but it's up to the case manager to document what that backup plan is, because there has to be one. And so if it's an additional worker, we will cover those criminal background checks. Again, we cover the criminal background check of a representative. If the participant elects to have that, we do process payments. It is bi-weekly payrolls, and there is a payroll calendar on our website if you're interested, www.pplfirst.com, that you guys can take a look at as to how the payroll is structured. We also see that we're a Go Green state, so we don't send out paper checks. And I say that and I go tongue in cheek. We do the very first check that we send out to a new worker will be a paper check. That's when we check the accounting, make sure the banking information is correct, that the account is still good, and all of that. Once we do that, it's direct deposit thereafter. If they don't have a bank account, we do what we call a pay card, and we direct deposit from day one onto that card if that is how they elect to receive their payments. So payroll is biweekly. The rate range for a direct service worker depends on the MCO, but we know the state of Florida says minimally it is $15 an hour. So depending on which MCO that individual elects to participate in, it could be 16, it could be 16.50. The max on, and when I say 15, I'm talking those, and I call them the three common services that you see on care plans. So it's personal care, adult companion care, and homemaking. Those are the ones that across the board in all the programs start the workers at $15 an hour. But like I said, that rate range does vary depending on the MCO. We do issue, as I mentioned, W-2. So when the worker is signing up, they have to fill out the W-4 and an I-9. So we are not the employer. So the I-9 is not verified by a PPL employee. It is verified by the participant. So the participant has to see that if they're using a US passport or they're using driver's license and social security card, they're the ones that's going to sign off that they've seen it and they've verified it. Because again, in this program, you have to be legally able to work in the United States. So they have to have that documentation. And then the other thing that we do is we do provide a lot of reporting to the managed care organization, who then rolls it up to the state so that they understand who's in the program, what those demographics are, what all the other services are. One of the big things in charge with SMMC 3.0 is growth. There is a significant program growth that the state wants to see with this program. So, and I'm excited over it. I think it is, since I'm learning about PDO, just like D, I think it's the best thing that's out there. So, again, her job is to just walk and talk the self-directed circles and making sure that people know that self-direction is an option in Florida. That option is PDO. And my role is to, with the MCOs that we are contracted with, is to make sure that all the case managers are comfortable talking about PDO to their participants, because it is really critical for them to be able to take the information, know all the rules, to be able to introduce it to that participant. And to understand that on day one, it's not like traditional services where we go back to the office, we get on the phone, we make a few phone calls, and possibly in a day or so, we've got an identified worker that can take the case, that can then get started. With PDO, there is, and I call it a runway. There's what we call an enrollment journey. So from the time that the individual is introduced to the program and the case manager goes over all the rules and all the things that are expected, and they say, yes, I want to be my own employer. And a lot of time, the biggest selling, and I think where we saw major growth, even in my family, was during COVID. During COVID, when most people did not want that revolving door of people coming in and out, a lot more people saw the benefit of PDO because then they could make those decisions. It's empowering them to be able to direct their own care. And so for them, they went into it with an understanding that, these are things that I get to control, and the revolving door doesn't happen. But that to get past that door during the runway, from the referral to when we call them good to go. It's a terminology that we use to say that they are now enrolled and they have a worker that is enrolled and they can now start working. Sometimes that can be as little as 5 days. Sometimes it can be as long as 30 days. What are some of the roadblocks? And I'm being just totally transparent with the program. I love the program. The program works. But there are things, the level 2 criminal background check, that's one of those things that, people need to recognize that, once we register them to go for their level 2 criminal background check and they go have their fingerprints rolled, it goes through the system. Sometimes the agency background screening works very smoothly, no problem. We get the results back almost immediately. Other times, if there is anything in that background, it will delay them being approved. So we've had, and I always tell this story. One of my very first enrollments was a husband and wife. The husband was going to be the worker. The wife's sister was going to be the representative. The wife was disabled, bedbound, sweet as can be. Went through, they were all excited, did all the paperwork. And right after I left, he said, I'm going right away to get my fingerprints done. He did, and he failed. And he was so devastated because we don't sometimes realize that the system is very unforgiving with certain things. So this gentleman had a 30-year-old DUI. It showed up. It's a ding, and it automatically disqualified him. The good news is that there is a process where they can seek an exception. And so when they're found that they are not eligible, there is paperwork they can do. It requires them to have a character affidavit, disposition of the case, certain other things. Once they pull all of that together and they send it in, it can take up to 6 weeks to get that exception. So those are some of the things that with this program that we kind of have to explain. A lot of times, if it's the representative, they will just flip and take another family member. But with workers, sometimes they are stuck with the worker that they've chosen. And so they will take the extra time and steps. Now, one of the things when this happens, along this journey, their case manager, their MCO case manager is being apprised of everything that's going on. Because again, what we don't want is for the individual to go without services while this is all going on. So sometimes we have to go back to traditional services. And once the individual is fully qualified to start PDO, they can flip them over to the PDO services and the traditional services. Hopefully, I have given you enough. Some of the questions, as I saw them, I tried to answer them. I will pause now for us to go back through and look at some of those questions. So, Dee, I don't know if you were looking at them as we were going. Is there any that I need to make absolutely sure that I answer before I stop talking and give you back the floor?
So before we get to the questions, I just wanted to make you aware that you're not alone in this. This is a lot of information to process, and we are here to support the guidance and assistance that you need. We do have a concierge team. They do an amazing job providing information and guidance. And our main goal is not to push people into choosing PDO. We want to ensure that PDO is the ideal option for the participant and their families. So feel free to share our number. Also, visit our website. We have very valuable information that you can access there. And we actually have a very unique interactive questionnaire that you can learn more about participant direction, self-direction, consumer direction. It depends what states you're inquiring about. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 21 states that we're contracted with. So the information is not specific to Florida, but to all the other states that we support. And we're here to help. You know, we want to support you. We want to guide you and guide those people that, you know, want to learn more about this program. And have any information on community engagement opportunities. You know, I cover Florida. We do have community liaisons in other states, but, you know, please channel those my way. We're always looking for ways to create more awareness, you know, about long-term care and PDO. And we also have a strong presence in some social media platforms. So we are ready for your questions. We thank you for your time. Let me go back to the chat and see.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started with a couple of the questions that I am seeing. I think some of them I did answer. Can family members be hired? Absolutely. They just have to be over 18 and pass that level 2 criminal background check. Checks and balances that are in place. So once we, as the FMS, do the enrollment, we are expecting the case manager. The case manager is the person that has the relationship, and that when I train them, that's what I always tell them. You're the ones with the relationship, that ongoing relationship. It's really important that, you know, if you're making regular, because they're doing monthly contacts, quarterly visits, that, you know, anything out of sorts, you will probably be the first to know. Although there are times when a family member will call our customer service to say, my sister is supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, and she's not. When those come in, we always follow up, because one of the things that I appreciate about this program is that there is minimally fraud, waste, and abuse. People really do care in this program, and they do take care of their loved ones. And a lot of times, you know, I'll get but I provide way more care than the hours that are on the plan of care. That is an absolute true statement every time, all the time. But they do again, we'll follow through with those. The okay, the rate, like I said, all depends on the MCO, but minimally it's 15 an hour. So if there is a POA, if the person does not have capacity, but there is a POA, a guardian, they can make the decision for the person to participate in the program. One of the things that we have is unspoken rule. If you are the POA and you want them to participate, but you also want to be the worker, then it's an absolute must that they have to have a designated representative, because someone has to sign off and say that the work that you are putting in on those time entries are actually being done. Annuities, I'm not sure. That's under that Medicaid qualification stuff that I'm kind of fuzzy on. We are contracted with the managed care company, so we do not bill the participants for anything. Our fees come from a per member per month contract with the MCO. So the $15, and the worker does not take on the responsibility of the workers' comp or any of the payroll services that we provide. All of that is a part of our contract to the MCO. So the workers, $15 an hour is what they would be receiving based on their W-4 would be the only deductions. And the other thing that I will mention here is a little tricky rule called difficulty of care exclusion, where the worker, if they live in the same house as the member, the participant, can elect to have difficulty of care where no federal income taxes are taken out. And since there aren't any state taxes, I know I brag that we provide W-2s at the end of every year, but if we're not taking federal income taxes out, we have nothing to report, so we don't send out a W-2. Yes, they can blend services. They can use traditional services with PDO. The case manager would then be the ones writing up the authorizations and how that would look. But yes, it can be both. All right, keep me honest, guys. Did I get all of them? Awesome, 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 awesome. Any other questions about PDO? As you can see, I can talk PDO off the top of my head all day long, every day. Been doing it for over 10 years. And happy to do it.
That's really, really great information. I don't see any more questions on there, but it seems like y'all try to make it really easy for, the participant in the program to hire somebody that's a family member, or could it be somebody else that's not a family member that they want to hire?
Yes. So with and I always go back to my own personal statement. My mom, who had advanced stage Parkinson's, like I said, we were using agency services till COVID. The revolving door with the services really started getting to us. And so she flipped to PDO with my sister being the representative. And we didn't know anyone, but we went back to one of the aides that had been coming, and we asked her, would she be willing, and she said absolutely. So we were able to flip her into working for mom versus working for the agency. So yes, can be anybody. And now we're just starting, where we're putting together what we call PPL Connect, where other workers can register themselves for availability to work for individuals. So it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you know. We are trying to make it more available to individuals. So I see from Deborah, yes. So the MCOs that we currently service are two of the MCOs that cover the entire state of Florida. So we are everywhere. What was the other one? So if he is HCBS Medicaid, as long as he's under the long-term care waiver, I think is the key, because the long-term care waiver puts them in the into one of the managed care organizations. And then at that point, yes, they would be able to participate. Okay, Sharon, I don't see anything else, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Hopefully, Maria, that answered your question. I know the CDC Plus is a specialized where I think like a parent can be paid or something like that for services, and also hopefully that answered your question. If not, I'm sure Cecilia would be happy to research that for you a little bit more. So the
Surely
people
can.
that are going into the long-term care program, they still have to go through the screening process with the ADRCs and the wait list process also, I assume, before they, can and get a spot into the program and get qualified. And then the caseworker will basically say, introduce the program, and then if they're interested, they would give them options for organizations such as PPL that could provide those services and enrollment. Is that kind of the crux of it?
Yeah, so the key to which FMS, there's only 3 in Florida. And we're all, but like I said, every managed care organization has to be contracted with one of us. And we all do the same thing. We want to say we're the best, but no, again, for this particular presentation, it is, yes, they have, once they are in an MCO of their choice, the case manager is then charged with being the person, the gatekeeper, that introduces the program and takes them to the next step.
This is really great because it is important to be covered on workman's comp and, to do the payroll correctly and all of that. I think there's a lot that goes on where that's really not done appropriately. And at the same time, now you're getting the oversight. So sounds like a wonderful program. And I really appreciate you all being here for us today and providing your information. We will be obtaining your PowerPoint from you and sending that out in a link that Kate always sends an email to everybody after the program within a week with, the link. And we usually post this webinar to our website also. I forgot to ask you all if that was okay ahead of time. We're having some technical difficulties, but most of our webinars are posted to our website also, so you can see that again. And I wanted to mention to everybody on the presentation today that next month we are having an attorney, Randy Bryan, an elder law and estate planning attorney and VA accredited attorney, talk about VA benefits. And Randy is super knowledgeable. He's actually Agent's legal advisor. So I'm very excited about having him on one of our, as our presenter. And come with your questions, because I'd like to see you stump Randy. Because he's, I know there's a lot of questions sometimes about VA and even how VA and Medicaid kind of work together. So thank you so much, everybody. And special thank you to our presenters, Cecile and Dianna, today for coming. Happy Valentine's to everybody.
Thank you,
Spread the
Sharon.
love. And we will.
Thank you.
I wanted to add real quick, I will also be sending over supporting materials. And we also have a couple of Spanish speaking pieces that you might be able to have in case you do get inquiries in Spanish. And if you ever need a presentation in Spanish, I'm fluent in Spanish. I can be more than happy to share that with you as well. So we are so thankful for the opportunity. We're very excited to be here today. And thank you, Cecile. I'm glad that you were here to show all your knowledge and expertise.
Great.
Thank you for having me. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.